So I want to welcome everybody to our Hacking the Hacker event. Real quickly, we want to thank our sponsors. First, Chad, Jeremy Ranch. We want to thank those guys for the great facility for breakfast. Give them a quick hand. Hopefully, everybody's really hungry because we expect there to be no leftovers. And if this is all that is in attendance, you guys better get after it. So it's going to be good. Also, Nextiva, right here. They're a fantastic VoIP solution and a whole lot more. I could probably talk for an hour on it, but feel free to stop by there. Also, Sophos, if you've been watching some of these funny video clips, they'll be here shortly. They're part of the people that are stuck in the traffic going the wrong way. So, who am I missing from a sponsorship perspective? Mark Hatch. Oh, it's because you're so good looking. Mark's actually going to be presenting as well after Earl from Hatch Insurance Group. He made it on time, funny enough, coming from the other end of the other side of the valley. Feel free to eat, feel free to get up and go and do as you need to throughout the day, but we're excited for the event. These are purely for what I said they are, right? I expect to see at least one or two of these things thrown. If not at these guys, at me. But welcome, we're excited to have you here. Everybody needs to see this because this is fairly fun.
Hello my friends, I'm Professor Hans von Puppet, here today to introduce my good friend Earl Foote. Earl is the owner of Nexus IT Consultants, a complete information technology support provider in operation since 1998. Once dedicated to building customized computer systems for audiovisual studios, Nexus IT Consultants now serves as your one-stop shop for all SMB's IT needs. Infrastructure, cloud, security, VoIP, AV, software, consulting, projects, Wi-Fi, surveillance, web design, development, internet marketing, the whole enchilada. In recent years, the company has expanded 250% in revenue and size, growing from a $500 personal investment way back in 1998 to the multi-million-dollar company you see today. Earl has been involved in the information technology industry and in managing IT-related businesses for 17 years. During this time, Earl has developed a diversified base of IT qualifications and expertise across many different types of technology. Earl is constantly working on new product developments that will benefit his client to save them both time and money. Ladies and gentlemen, Earl Foote.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here this morning. I personally don't like to take myself too seriously, and so hopefully that intro is goofy enough that it doesn't make things look too serious around here. I'm going to try and stand where I think everybody can see me. Does that work? I know these poles are a little bit of a challenge, but thank you all for being here this morning. It's our pleasure to be here with you. We're going to talk a little bit today about hackers and their strategies that they are using to try and breach your organizations, your networks, and even your personal lives. We don't want to alarm you or scare you, although we're going to talk about some pretty potentially scary things. Ultimately, our objective here is for you to walk away from this feeling empowered, feeling like you've learned some tips and tricks and some tools that will help you be smarter about your daily technology use and help you protect your organizations from being would-be victims of cybercrime. So this is our Hacking the Hacker series. This is what we call version 1. We will be doing the Reloaded. We call Reloaded version 2. Reloaded. We'll be doing that August 15th. Here again, same time, same place. So we hope that you keep that in mind, keep it on your calendars. Let's see here, see if I can get this to advance. Cybercrime is not new to us. It's something that we're seeing constantly in the news, right? We see whatever news sources that we might personally use. We see announcements and we see news happening all the time about you know, the latest and newest breach, right? Equifax or Target or Home Depot or whoever it might be, right? And so the thing that oftentimes we fail to recognize, and we see those big companies in the news and think, okay, well, you know, the hackers are going after those multi-billion-dollar companies because they can get sometimes hundreds of thousands or millions of records. The thing that we fail to recognize oftentimes is that as small to medium-sized businesses, we are actually, we have become the #1 target for hackers. And why is that? We might say, well, I don't have that much for them to get, right? I mean, I have 300 clients, and you know, I have their information, and I have 15 employees, right? Maybe, and it's really not that much. But as small to medium-sized businesses, we tend to not take security seriously, and we tend to not have the budgets to take it seriously oftentimes, and so we're an easy target for hackers. Some of these big breaches and hacks that we see happen with the Targets and Home Depots and those types of companies, some of those are large orchestrated efforts that happen with a group of hackers and sometimes take months to plan and execute. Whereas with a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, a hacker can get in a matter of minutes. And so it's little effort, it's little payoff, but it's worth it to them. And it's sometimes it's so extremely easy. In 2015, there was a stat published that there was a study done, and they published that 3 out of 5 Utah small and medium-sized businesses had been hacked. That was in 2015. That was 3 years ago, guys. The study also said that 2 out of those 5 didn't even know that they were hacked. 2 out of the 5 were actively hacked, and hackers were actively siphoning data from their networks, and they weren't aware of it. By the way, guys, if it makes it any easier for any of you to see the screen or me, you're welcome to move forward further. There will be some text that you might want to see that's gonna be a little small on the screen. That same study showed that the average hack for a small and medium-sized business in the state of Utah, who has an average of 5,000 records compromised, the cost of that hack now is about $2.5 million, okay? And you might go, wow, whoa, $2.5 million, how could it possibly cost that? The reality is that our involvement from the IT side is a very small fraction of that number. In terms of the preemptive defense, or if we're called in to remediate and do forensics on an issue after the fact, the majority of that $2.5 million comes from class action lawsuits, attorney fees, and the government regulation fines. And so, as small and medium-sized businesses, we have a very real threat and a very real concern. For most small and medium-sized businesses, a hack that costs them $2.5 million, if they're not properly prepared, is a business-ending event. This is why we do these events in conjunction with Mark Hatch from Hatch Insurance. He's going to talk to you about how to protect yourselves from these types of situations. Because for many of us, the sad truth is, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, unfortunately. And that's one thing that I want to make clear to everybody here. We're going to talk about all of these wonderful things that you can do to protect yourselves. And if you're doing the right things, you're going to make yourselves 90–95% more secure and less likely to be breached. But in the end, the reality is that there is nothing that is 100% foolproof in this world when it comes to security and IT. And if a hacker wants to get in, they'll find a way in. And we'll talk about how they do that. But we have to be realistic that for many companies, and we saw the stat in 2015, 3 out of 5 Utah businesses, right, that have been hacked. So the majority of companies, unfortunately, at some point in their life cycle are going to be hacked. The SANS Institute does some different reports every year, and they did a report last year about IT security spending and IT spending as a whole. The report showed that the majority of companies now are spending 5 to 12, and the number has actually climbed a little bit up to about 15% of their yearly annual revenue now on IT and on IT security. Typically we see, and the report states that typically we see that the companies who are obligated to have compliance, companies such as healthcare, financial institutions, hospitality, food services, retail, professional services, accountants, attorneys, all those types of things. Companies that have government regulations that require them to be compliant are generally spending in the 10 to 15% of their annual revenue on staying secure. The reality is that as our world changes and morphs, oftentimes a lot of us might look at our organizations and we might be saying, well, we're going to allocate 0.5% of our yearly revenue to IT, right? And the unfortunate reality is that is becoming a recipe for disaster. If you're not taking the proper steps and going the extra mile to protect yourselves, your organizations, your employees' data and your clients' data, you're opening yourself up to issues. Let's talk about a few key concepts real quick that we're going to go over a little bit more in depth here today. Attack vectors are the point of weakness that a would-be cyber criminal uses to breach your networks. Does anybody know what ransomware, or does everybody know what ransomware is? Yeah? Okay, anybody had ransomware? Chad?
That's why we're a client.
Yeah. Yes. So ransomware, and this is becoming the most common attack vector. Ransomware is a malware, a virus that is installed on a computer in your network from one of many different possible, many different possible ways that it's that they get installed on a computer. The ransomware will encrypt all the data on a computer and spread. We're going to talk about worms. So they spread via a worm, spread to your servers or other computers on your networks, and encrypt all the data so that suddenly all of your documents and your Excel spreadsheets and your financial databases and your pictures and your marketing data and everything is inaccessible to you. And you get a pop-up on your screen that says your data's been encrypted. If you want it back, you need to pay a ransom. You got to pay us X amount of Bitcoin. And we'll talk more about Bitcoin in our version 2 or Reloaded in August and how that all works. But they require that you pay them Bitcoin, which is completely untraceable, to get your data back. So that's essentially what ransomware is. If you're not doing the right things to prepare for that sort of scenario, then you may find yourself having to pay the ransom. The ransom cost can go, we generally see that they usually ask for a half a Bitcoin, and we've seen that cost anywhere from $50 to $20,000, right? And I think any of us who follow the stock markets at all have seen what's happened with Bitcoin over the last several months. It's coming back down pretty sharp now, but particularly when a major ransomware strain hits worldwide, the cost of Bitcoin tends to escalate, and so we've seen the cost go extremely high. Let's move on. So phishing. Anybody know what phishing is? Yeah? We're not talking about, casting the pole and, reeling in some trout or anything like that. We're talking about targeted attempts, generally in email, that try to get you to click on something or give up some information that you shouldn't be giving up, breaching your privacy and breaching your network. And we'll look at some examples of those. Spear phishing is the same, it's just a little more targeted. A phishing campaign that a hacker sends out might be a huge blanket campaign they send out to millions of people. Spear phishing is, and we've seen this, and I'll show you some examples. For example, you get an email from your CEO, let's say you're in HR, right? And they say, and this happened, guys, this happened to Uber in 2016. The HR department got an email from the CEO that said, send me all W-2 records, including social security numbers, of all Uber employees, including all of our drivers worldwide, in a spreadsheet. And the HR department did it. Okay? Millions of records of Uber employees and drivers they sent to a hacker. It was a spoofed email. It wasn't the actual CEO, right? It was a spoofed email, and the HR department didn't figure it out, and they sent all of those records to the hacker. So that's a spear phishing attack when it's more targeted. It's from somebody you supposedly know, or it is to somebody very specific in your organizations. A worm is the mechanism that a ransomware and other malwares use to spread across your network. So in today's world, when you get some sort of malware infection that allows a hacker to breach your systems, that hacker is not going to stop at one computer, right? The worm enables that malicious payload to be delivered across your entire network. It enables it to spread to your server. It enables it to spread to all of your other computers on your network. Moving on, who's attacking me? So there's a lot of different potential attackers that might be looking for your data. The first is organized crime. And this is legitimate, guys. The mafias of yesteryear have gone away. Organized crime now works in cybercrime. The racketing schemes and the busting kneecaps and all that kind of stuff is not as common as it used to be. And most organized crime, particularly there's a lot of international organized groups and some of these very large. Interpol took down a group based out of Russia, I think it was in 2015, with like 15,000 employees. They had tech support centers in India and a major organized crime unit that was proliferating at the time what was known as rogue antiviruses. One of the other potential attackers are nation states. So there are actually countries out there who are paying individuals to try and hack you and your data, particularly going after corporate secrets and patented technologies and things like that. We know that Russia, North Korea, China are some of those. I shouldn't go on camera saying this, but honestly, I think the United States also does some of this, right? To ourselves and to citizens of other. What's that? You're in trouble. I'm in trouble, right? Does anybody have a microphone in here? Right? Let's see. Hacktivists are another common would-be cyber criminal. Although generally, they tend to think of themselves as white hat hackers or hackers who are hacking for good, right? So they're generally somebody who has a social cause and are shutting down websites or hacking to try and make a point. Some of you may have heard of anonymous or shadow brokers in the news, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. Lone wolves. And this might be a 12-year-old sitting in their basement in their underwear. And if you've heard of the dark web, I mean, literally any one of us could go on the dark web right now and buy a ransomware as a service kit for about $2,500, and with all the instructions and toll-free help desk that helps us deliver a ransomware payload and begin to make money off of it. And I'm not kidding, guys. This is real. And so, 12-year-old kids that, and excuse me for being vulgar, but 12-year-old kids that are picking their boogers in their basement are doing this, okay? And then there's malicious insiders. A lot of us fail to think about our own people, disgruntled employees disgruntled contractors perhaps that relationship has gone sour, and that they are maliciously or intentionally trying to steal data from us or simply do us harm. And so this is real. Last year there was a story on KSL about a lady who was a night manager, and I don't remember exactly what the business was or what they did, but she was a night manager at a business, and her boyfriend was smart enough to know how to install what's called a keylogger. And so he came in after hours with her, installed a keylogger on their server that was processing all of their credit card data. And so every day as they processed credit cards, this keylogger would collect the credit card information and give it to this guy. It would send it all to him. And so the two of them, the lady and her boyfriend, were using those credit cards to live a lavish lifestyle. It didn't last very long. You know, they did it for a few months and got caught. But this sort of thing is happening, guys, and we have to be, as organizations, to be compliant with government regulations. And we're going to talk about a new government regulation coming out that affects really about 90% of businesses anymore. Did I go back? How did I do that? There we go. So we have to be thinking about our own internal people as well. Real quick, guys, I want to recognize Paul with Sophos. Is Joe with you?
He's not. He's
okay.
in Vancouver.
All right. So they had some issues with traffic this morning. These guys are a fantastic partner. They are the guys who create all of the magnificent software and hardware that helps us keep your organization safe. Cyber defense software solutions and hardware solutions. So thanks, Paul, for being here. Thanks for being a fantastic partner. Let's talk about some attack vectors. You've got physical. So you have things like theft. You have malicious USB drives, flash drives, and you have unsecured workstations. Your endpoints are a potential attack vector. Endpoints are workstations, your computers, your laptops, and those types of things. You got to think about your mobile devices. That's an increasing attack vector for Android and iOS phones, smartphones. Your cloud solutions are also an attack vector. If you're using Google Drive or Dropbox, or you're using Office 365, or you're using, we've got here Amazon Web Services and Azure. Any of those types of things are potential attack vectors. Anybody know what IoT is? IoT, Internet of Things. We got Tony in the back from Nextiva. Internet of Things are all of these cool little devices that are coming out now that are internet connected. And most people don't even begin to think about the potential privacy and security ramifications of these devices. So let's talk about things like thermostats, right? Security cameras, wearable technology like Fitbit and those types of things, right? How about our refrigerators now that are connected to the internet, and you can order, your groceries off of Amazon or local grocery store, right? Any of those types of internet connected devices, those are Internet of Things, and those are becoming a major potential attack vector. They're less secure than most devices, and most people never change the default usernames and passwords for those. And so it's really simple and easy for hackers to get into those and then use that as an exploit to get into the rest of your information. Here's an example just from the news of a couple of different attack vectors. So we see number 3 here is a WSU hard drive theft potentially impacts 1 million people. That's an example of physical hacking. And then number 5, Accenture latest to breach client data due to misconfigured AWS. AWS is Amazon Web Services server. So that's an example of a cloud breach. Now, where we're going to spend most of our time today is talking about the human vector. This is, as we can see here, hackers will go for the most vulnerable point of attack, and that is us. When we've done our job using a fantastic partner like Sophos to implement really robust software and hardware solutions that protect our organizations, it makes it a lot harder for a hacker to breach our networks. But they know that there's always some guy out there that's just not that smart, right? And is going to open up an email or respond to one or click on something in an email or perhaps a pop-up or an ad on some website. And so 98% of all attacks now use social engineering. And social engineering is utilizing humans in order to breach a network. Let's see. It is false that attacks are becoming more sophisticated in how they deliver malicious code, but what is true is that nearly 100% of all attacks now, or all breaches, involve humans. And so we have to be extremely methodical and careful about making sure that our people understand their risks and how to avoid them. I want to show you something that's called the kill chain. The kill chain is the sequence with which a hacker uses to exploit and penetrate your networks. This is going to be hard to see, guys, but the first thing that happens is up here on the top left, and that's the reconnaissance that they do. While there are many hackers out there throwing a very wide net and not being very targeted about what they're doing, the majority of hacks now are actually a very targeted effort, and they know who you are, and they've investigated. If you're an executive at XYZ company, they have spent time to investigate your LinkedIn profile. If your Facebook profile is public, they've investigated. They've Googled your name. They found out all the information they can find out about you and your organization, and they have used that information to begin to orchestrate an attack against you. So they do their reconnaissance. They decide how they're going to attack you. They weaponize. They deliver their attack. If they're successful, then they begin to exploit, install whatever malicious code that is going to be used to breach your network, and then they take control and they begin their malicious intents to do harm to you. That's known as the kill chain, and that is how the hacker methodology works and how they penetrate your networks. Once they're in, this is what they begin to do. They begin to siphon your data, begin to take information from you. Now, most of the time, a hacker is going to not announce that they're there right away. They want to start snooping around and find out what there is for them to gain, right? And so even if you get a ransomware, sometimes those don't reveal themselves immediately. You might get a ransomware, and the hacker might have information to data or your systems, or the ransomware is siphoning data and sending it back to the hacker, and that might happen for days or weeks or sometimes months before they say, oh, you got the ransomware, now you got to pay us, right? So they've already stolen a lot of data, perhaps. This doesn't happen in every case, guys. I'm just giving you some scenarios, right? But they may have already stolen a lot of data from you, and then they encrypt your data and say, if you want it back, you got to pay us, $2,000. It's becoming very lucrative for hackers to do this. All right, so let's look at the anatomy of a malicious email, because this is the #1 payload that hackers are using now to try and breach your organizations. It's the easiest method of attack for them. Remember that humans are involved in almost all breach initiations. And so if you can learn to identify what a malicious email looks like and train your people on this, you're going to be far less likely to be breached. So these are some real-world examples, phishing examples, and spear phishing examples that come from clients of ours. 2 of our clients, it's been maybe a year and a half ago, on the same day, and we haven't revealed any of the real names here, but on the same day, 2 of our clients received, the 2 primary executives at these 2 clients received 2 separate emails that were very targeted spear phishing attacks. So this first one says, "Hi John Doe, I am with my business partners in Salt Lake City for 4 days. We've read a lot about ABC Company, so I decided to make a booking at your venue, sending enclosed further details. Would you mind if I asked you to read through and respond with your availability? I expect to hear from you soon. Regards, Debbie Fisher." Now, while these are not composed perfectly, they're composed far better than most phishing emails that we see. And the English is reasonably good. Many people could potentially be duped by this email. So this is a very targeted email that was going to a specific executive at a specific company. It had an attachment on it. And if our client had not sent, and in both cases, fortunately, these clients sent the emails to us and said, "Guys, this just looks a little off. Can you please take a look?" And we said, "Don't open that, delete it immediately." The attachments that look like a Word document of their supposed booking details, wanting to book their venue, that attachment had a ransomware malware attached to it. It would have installed in their system, and the hacker would have had access into their networks. And so, as we move on, here's another one. "Hi Jane Doe, I'm with my family in Park City for 5 days. We've read good comments about XYZ Company, so I decided to make a reservation at your venue. Sending attached complete information. Would you be able to see it and respond with your availability? I expect to hear from you soon." This went to a different executive, same company. Okay. Next one. "Hi John Doe, I have been given this $50 gift certificate or gift card, and they said that I can redeem it at ABC Corp. So I just want to double check with you before I visit the store, as I live an hour away from Park City. Would you be able to confirm the gift card? Please see it attached." Okay. That's somewhat convincing, right? Somewhat convincing. I got this gift card. Is it legit? It's attached. Can you please confirm? I don't want to drive, from Provo or wherever this person supposedly was sending this from, right? Next one. "Hi Jane Doe, I was told to contact you about the conflict that occurred at XYZ Co. So this is now creating some urgency, right? I was told to contact you about this conflict at this address on Tuesday. Kindly refer to the attached document for more details about the incident. Would you be so kind to view the complaint and reply with your thoughts on this?" Have any of you seen anything quite this targeted in your organizations? Chad has. Okay. Sometimes they're a blanket email, right? So for example, if you open up your Nexus folders, your packets that you have there, inside to the right-hand side, you're going to see a phishing experiment that we did. We sent about 3,800 emails out claiming to be a courier service company who had a package. The email claimed we weren't able to deliver your package. Please click on the link in this email to schedule us to come out and deliver the package, right? We purposefully made the email look a little bit suspect. There was the English wasn't exactly right. The grammar was a little off. There were a few misspellings. We purposely made it look a little dubious. And even with that, if you look at this, 38% of people opened the email. So 1,300, almost 1,400 people opened the email. And 495 people actually clicked on the link, 14%. So when we talk to our clients about these subjects, oftentimes they say, we're not vulnerable to that stuff. Our people are smart enough. The reality is, out of 3,800 people of our clients, of some of you who are here in this room, 14% of your people clicked on this link that they should have never clicked on. If it had not been us, your organizations would have been hacked.
I want to add on that, some of the people that clicked were the CEOs and presidents of those companies who say that they're not vulnerable. Side story that I was not going to tell you is we actually received people driving to our office asking Dusty for the package. I got accused of being a cyber terrorist, which was quite entertaining, and did receive one death.
Anyways, guys, so these are real. Let's talk about one of the other common attack vectors. can I have you, and I forgot to mention this at the front, guys. We're going to take some questions, but I've got quite a bit to get through. Can you write questions down? You've got some pads in front of you, and I'll be happy to, we'll spend 10 or 15 minutes as soon as we're done and answer some questions. The other really common attack vector now are spoofed URLs. Anytime, and going back to the phishing emails, you'll notice generally that a hacker, when they're sending a phishing email, is trying to create some sense of urgency. And the URLs that come in these emails oftentimes might look innocuous. They might look innocent, right? But we're going to talk about those a little bit further. One thing to always keep in mind, and one of the things we're seeing extremely common now these days, guys, is that anybody involved in financial transactions, we're seeing title companies, mortgage companies, real estate agents, anybody who is wiring data or wiring finances on a regular basis, we're seeing their emails get hacked or spoofed. Does everybody know what spoofing is with an email? Really quickly, so a spoofed email is an email that is made to look like it came from somebody. So for example, let's just say that Dusty gets an email that looks like it comes from me. It has my signature, it says Earl Foote. Dusty, you know, I need you to wire that $15,000 over to Paul at Sophos right away this afternoon. We got that project, we got to get going, and Paul needs the money now, right? So that's the type of emails that we're seeing happen extremely commonly in financial industries, and people are falling for it every single day here in Park City and in Salt Lake, guys. We're seeing it happen every day. And so one of the important things to keep in mind here, if an important contact or organization to you has an urgent message for you, you've got to think about, is this really how they're going to approach this, right? And if it's important enough, I need to just get on the phone and verify with that person. True story, within the last 6 months, a client of ours here in Park City, the controller of the company, got an email from the CEO, said, I need you to wire $30,000 to this bank account today for XYZ, right? For one of their suppliers. And the controller did it. She did it. And then, like, a couple hours after doing it, she was like, that seemed a little weird. And it was an urgent, email. It's got to happen this afternoon. I need it to happen now. And the CEO was, happened to be traveling. And so she sent the $30,000, and a couple hours later went, that didn't look right. So she called him up and said, hey, I sent that transfer, I sent that wire transfer. It seems a little weird. He's like, what wire transfer? What are you talking about? And so they went, uh-oh, right? Fortunately, they were quick enough that they were able to go to the bank and stop the wire transfer and get it reversed and get their money back. The unfortunate reality is that in business now, if you let that go for 24 to 48 hours, you may be out of luck. You may never get that money back. The FDIC does not insure business bank accounts against fraud. They insure consumer bank accounts against fraud. So if it's your personal bank account, you'll probably get that money back. But if you're a business, you very well may not, unless you have some sort of arrangement in place with or service in place with your bank. So let's look at the anatomy of a malicious email. Oftentimes, a malicious email is going to be sent from a public email address, right? So let's just say that Sue at Park City Chamber is, I've got some supposed urgent email from Sue at Park City Chamber, right? Saying, hey, Earl, I need you to review this new IT plan, and I need to present it to our board this afternoon. Could you please get on it right away? Look at the attached document or something like that, right? But if that's coming from suecappas@gmail.com, right, I'm going to go, why is she saying that from a Gmail address and not from her Park City Chamber address? That maybe is, there's maybe something wrong here. So first thing to look for, right? Second thing to look for are unsolicited attachments, right? In your emails, do not open an attachment if you don't know what it is and who it's from, right? And even if you know who the person is and you're a little suspicious about it, call them and make sure that they meant to send it to you. How many of you have gotten like DocuSign agreements? Like, you know, when you happen to be in the middle of a financial transaction and somebody sends you a DocuSign agreement attached, you know, or some link to DocuSign, and it's bogus, right? Those are the types of things you want to be looking for. Generic greetings. This says "Dear User" rather than "Dear Roy," right? Or "Hey Roy," whatever it might be. And you know, look for the verbiage, right? I mean, if Roy's a guy I know and I might be saying "Hey Roy" instead of "Dear Roy," right? I mean, if I address an email to Roy that says "Dear Roy," he's going to kind of go, "What the hell's wrong with Earl," right? So think about those things. Look for spelling and grammar mistakes. Look for links to unrecognized sites that you just don't know what they are. Look for sense of urgency, things that tell you this has got to happen now, do it right away, right? And then look for weird phone numbers. You know, sometimes there's international phone numbers or phone numbers that just don't look correct. To ensure that you're staying safe, always look before you click. Hover over any links to investigate what they are. So for example, and this is not going to show up real well for those of you that aren't close. In fact, probably none of you are going to be able to see this, but when I hover over this link for ksl.com right there, it actually shows www.nexusitc.net, okay? So a hacker can make a link look legitimate, but it actually goes to a different place. So if you, whether it's in email, whether it's you know, as you're browsing the web, hover over, don't click, just put your mouse over that link and wait for the little pop-up to come up and it will show you what the true link is. Another one, this u.link shows u.not.u.com. So it might be, you know, u.scam.com or something like that. Another one to keep in mind is oftentimes they have, they make a subtle change to a URL, right? It might be google.com with 3 O's, right? Or maybe they left out the E on the end or something like that. So look for those. And then, who knows what URL shorteners are? All right, so oftentimes when you're getting emails or you're navigating the web, you're going to see a shortened